And welcome, sports fans, to today's Sports Roundtable. Glad you joined us here on YHC TV, Channel 21, YHCTV.com, and Facebook Live to bring you this week's action, especially last night in district high school football action throughout the area. An action-packed night and big championship games in high school football in Missouri and also in state playoffs that are getting underway down in Arkansas. We're going to touch on those games in just a moment, but we're also going to be getting into potentially some state playoff games next week. We'll see what happens there. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Also, we'll give you a little preview of those quarterfinal matchups that will be taking place next weekend throughout the state of Missouri, as we're now into the quarterfinal round of high school state tournament play in high school football. So we're going to take a look at those matchups coming up as well. So let's go first off, take a look at some games that took place last night in the area. First, starting off with Class 1 District 1 championship game in Hayti, as the Hayti Indians hosted Valley Catholic, and always a big matchup between those two over the last few years. And Valley Catholic was working on 10 straight district championships. Comes to an end last night against the Hayti Indians, as the Indians won 28-7. Kind of a shocker there. Hayti's been putting up 50-plus points all year long, but around 40-degree weather last night might have played into the low scoring, even though 28 is not really considered low scoring, but for the Hayti Indians it certainly is. And got a decisive victory over Valley Catholic last night as they continue their undefeated season into the quarterfinal round. And we'll talk more about that game in a moment. But the Hayti Indians advance to the Class 1 state tournament. And in Class 2, in the Class 2 District 1 championship game, the third-seeded Crothersville Tigers defeated the top-seeded Charleston Blue Jays in Charleston last night, 20-12, as Crothersville repeat as district champions. And we'll move on to the quarterfinal round. Charleston having a great year and just coming up a bit short last night at home. But, Charleston's been a struggling team over the last couple of years. They put together a fine season this year, got the top rank in their district, and hosted that championship game last night. But Crothersville edged the Blue Jays to move on to the Class 2 state tournament. And moving on to Class 3 District 1, the game that we brought live to you last night here on YHC was the top-seeded Kennet Indians victorious over the second-seeded Park Hill Central Rebels, 42-20, as the Kennet Indians win that district championship. They will move on to the Class 3 state tournament. And quite a game last night. Park Hills came out early on with some big scores. They had their first play from scrimmage go for 48 yards from Deshaun Welch, and had another one later in the game, a 92-yard pass completion. It was probably a 1-yard pass completion, ran for 92 yards into the end zone by, I think that was Will Hopkins for the Rebels, that took that in for the touchdown for 92 yards. That was two of the big scores for Park Hill Central. And Kennet come up with some big plays. They forced, I think, 4 turnovers in the game, a couple of interceptions, a couple of fumbles, and forced a lot of turnovers, cashed them in for touchdowns. And big night for Marchavon Harold. I don't have the numbers on him from last night, but probably well over 100 yards rushing. Big night for him on the ground. And a good defensive game up front by Trayvon Lemons. He always come up with a big stop. I think he had probably 4 to 5 tackles for loss last night, including a sack. And a big game for him. So a big game across the board for the Kennet Indians. An impressive showing last night in that district championship and getting the win and moving on to the quarterfinal round. We'll talk more about where the Kennet Indians are headed in our next segment. And take a look at Class 5 District 1 championship game. The Jackson Indians hosted Fox up at the Pit in Jackson last night, and they get that victory 42-23. Impressive showing by the Jackson Indians, as they've been all year. I think they've only got 1 loss on the year, and victorious over Fox last night in that district championship. I think that's their first since 2014, as they will advance on to the quarterfinal round. And very impressive season once again for the Jackson Indians. And now take a look at some Arkansas playoff action from last night in the 3A, Class 3A first round of the playoffs. It was McGee hosting the Piggott Mohawks, and the Piggott Mohawks fall on the road 24-14 to McGee, and a tough first round opponent for the Mohawks once again this year. in a very competitive 3A3 conference. I think they finished fourth in the conference, I believe, and had to go on the road against McGee. Very good opponent there in the 3A, and they fall on the road to a very good McGee team. So the Pickett Mohawks season comes to an end. Another impressive season for the Mohawks, getting to the state playoffs, getting to that first round, but just drawing some tough opponents there in that first round. And the Mohawks come up short last night in McGee. But congratulations to the Mohawks. Had a great year. We had a lot of fun down there covering their 6 home games. And always fun to go down there to Pickett and bring the Mohawk football here on YHC. So congratulations, Pickett, on another fine season. And the Rector Cougars made the state playoffs in Class 2A. Struggling program over the years. They've had about 3 winless seasons. But this year, they've put together a fine season, made the Class 2A playoffs, but fell to Fortis last night as they hosted Fortis and went down 43-7 in that 2A playoff matchup. But Rector turning that program around and having a fine year, a winning record this year. And congratulations to them making the playoffs this year. And if you want to catch the replay of that Park Hill Central Kennett game from last night, you can do so here on Channel 21, and you can do that today at noon, Saturday at noon, also later on at 6 p.m. this evening, Saturday evening, and then Sunday at 4, the replay here on Channel 21 on your New Wave Communications cable. You can watch it at any time. Go on our website at yhctv.com, and it's available to view there anytime there, and also at our YouTube page online at youtube.com. You can find our channel online, Your Hometown Channel, and you can watch it there. And also watch it on our website at yhctv.com. And an impressive showing by the Kennett Indians last night, and you'll enjoy that replay from last night. And we're going to take our first break, and we're going to come back with your storylines from last night and look ahead into those quarterfinal matchups next weekend. We'll be right back.
A Glen Saint story. A few years ago, a good friend of ours ran for a state legislative office. The night of the election, Gail and I had some friends and family over. Our friend won. His young son looked at him and said, "Dad, since you won, does that mean you can make duck season longer?" That's a good story. Best price, best service. Glen Saint, God bless our troops.
For the best service in air conditioning, it's AirTech Heating and Air in Dexter. They service both commercial and residential customers and provide additional services including plumbing, electrical, and appliance repair. AirTech is a Carrier factory authorized dealer, and currently Carrier is offering cool cash rebates, providing you extra savings towards a new AC unit. Served the area as a family business since 1960, now led by NATE certified Jason Johnson. He holds the highest certification in the heating, cooling, and refrigeration industry. Call today to get the expert service of AirTech in Dexter.
And welcome back, and take a look at some storylines from last night's games in that Class 3 District 1 championship. The Kennett Indians win that district championship, their first since 1986. I was trying to think of that last night and found that this morning. But the Kennett Indians, their first district championship since 1986, and pulling out that district title last night at Metz Cherry Stadium. They were going to be the favorite in that one. Park Hill Central struggling through most of their district schedule, and Kennett's just been rolling through their schedule and their district schedule, and pretty much have through most of the year. Their only loss coming in week 2 against Gosnell down in Northeast Arkansas, so they still remain undefeated against Missouri opponents, and they will move on after that 42-20 victory over the Park Hill Central Rebels. And just in a moment, we'll talk about their next opponent, which is Cardinal Ritter. We'll talk about that for the quarterfinal matchup coming up next weekend. But Kennett, great showing last night. Coach Joel White and his staff have done a great job this year. The Kennett Indians were expected maybe to take a step back this year. They graduated a lot of seniors last year that were big-time players for the Indians, and suffered some injuries last year at the latter part of that year that really hurt them in their district tournament run, which they lost to Salem in the semifinals last year. But come back this year, healthy at the right time. Pretty much everybody contributing across the roster and making a good run as some of the other teams maybe took a step back more so than the Indians, but I think the Indians have taken a step up from the way it looks from last year. They had some big-time contributors, especially that junior class has played great this year. And even Bodie Ellis, sophomore quarterback, stepping in at the quarterback position as an underclassman. Some big-time players stepping up that weren't even in the mix last year at the varsity level. And some big-time contributions out of those juniors stepping up this year. So we'll see what the Kenyon Indians have in store next week in the quarterfinals as they advance on after that district championship title last night. And the Crowsville Tigers repeat as district champions, and they've had a drought of district championships going back to up until last year. Malden has had a stranglehold on that Class 2 District 1 for I think it was about 5 years. Up until last year, they defeated Malden in the district championship last year, and now repeat as champs as they had to go on the road as a 3 seed to take on Charleston, and they won that one 20-12 last night in Charleston. So it wasn't easy for the Tigers, but they do repeat as district champions. And Nicholas Moore having a big night for the Crowsville Tigers, 184 rush yards for Nicholas Moore of the Tigers, and I think they had over 300 rushing yards on the night. So a big rushing night for the Crowsville Tigers as they advance, and Nicholas Moore putting up a big night, 184 rushing yards for the Crowsville Tigers. And Hayti winning their first district title going back to 2007. As I mentioned, Valley Catholic winning 10 straight Class 1 District 1 titles, Class 1 District 1 titles, and they've had a stranglehold on that district for the last decade. And Hayti broke that last night. With a decisive victory over Valley Catholic, 28-7. Kind of expected a bigger spread than that, but that cold weather may have played a role last night. But either way, the Hayti Indians advance to the Class 1 state tournament. And Ivory winners, certainly the runaway card trophy winner this year, as the most valuable player in Southeast Missouri, had 214 rushing yards. An impressive season. I think going back, he had 9 touchdowns or 7 touchdowns a week ago, and capping off a big performance for the district championship last night. 214 rushing yards. Just an unbelievable talent in Ivory winners. And a great year, and certainly a great district championship game last night as they move on after a great performance by Ivory winners among the other Hayti Indians. Just a great performance so far all this year, and they proved it probably in their toughest opponent so far this year against Valley Catholic, snapping their 10-year district championship run last night. And the Jackson Indians defeat Fox for the district title, and that's their first since 2014. And going to be well favored in that game last night, even though Fox, I believe, come in undefeated. And Jackson gets that district championship at the pit last night. Jordan Kent, big night receiving, had 91 reception yards, I believe, on 4 catches, including 1 in the first quarter was a 33-yard touchdown receptions from Cale Welker. Cale Welker having a great year. Had only about 100 and some odd yards last night, and 91 of it went to Jordan Kent. Those two right there, it's like looking back at Peyton Manning, Marvin Harrison. Big-time connection there, and they've put up big numbers all year. And certainly a great duo, probably the best duo, quarterback-receiver duo in Southeast Missouri, Cale Welker to Jordan Kent. And Kent putting up a big night last night, 91 reception yards for the Jackson Indians. So Jackson Indians move on to the Class 5 state tournament, and a very competitive state tournament there in Class 5. So we'll take a look at that in a moment. But first, starting off with Class 1 state tournament for Missouri. There's a look at the final 8 teams that remain. We're in the quarterfinal round, and Hayti Indians will take on the Thayer Bobcats. And they've actually played already this year, and Hayti thumped Thayer pretty good early on in the season. So we'll see what happens there between Hayti and Thayer in the Class 1 quarterfinals, as I would expect. Hayti to be the big favorite in that one against Thayer in that rematch, as Hayti is probably going to be the big favorite probably throughout at this point, the way their season has gone. So we'll see what happens, but it's going to be fun to see what happens with Hayti and their potential run in the state tournament in Class 1, and that one will be at Thayer They are Saturday afternoon. That's one thing they've done this year. Misha has moved the quarterfinal games to Saturday afternoon. They used to be on Friday nights, and a good call. A good call by Misha. Like Park Hills and Kennett last night. Park Hills had a 3-hour bus ride down to Kennett. That's a good haul. And on a Friday night, it makes it tough. Gets it tough being there, getting there, leaving early in the day, and also getting home well after midnight on the road trip home. So Misha making a good call there, moving those quarterfinal games to Saturday afternoon. Certainly will help out with the temperature for sure. Not only that, the trips makes it easier getting to and from. Now these are long distance trips. Typically, when you get into the state playoffs, having to travel almost halfway across the state for some of these playoff games. So good move there by Misha, moving those games to Saturday afternoon this year. And take a look at the other matchups that are in Class 1. Fayette taking on Western. Adrian taking on Lincoln. And Mid-Buchanan taking on Hamilton Penny. And take a look at the Class 2 state tournament bracket. Crothersville will take on Lutheran North next Saturday afternoon. Actually, they're going to play on Friday night, so they didn't move all those games to 1 o'clock. So must be on a team-to-team basis. That will be in Crothersville Friday night, 7 o'clock start. If we don't see that change, 7 o'clock start Friday night, as that's a rematch of last year's game, Lutheran North and Crothersville, and Lutheran North really put it on Crothersville last year. We'll see if it's a different case this year, as Crothersville will host Lutheran North Friday night at 7 o'clock. And the other matchups there, Blair Oaks taking on Clark County, Ava taking on the 6-time defending state champion Lamar, and also Summit Christian taking on Lathrop. And taking a look at Class 3, the Class 3 state tournament, and Kennett will travel to take on the Cardinal Ritter Lions up in St. Louis, in downtown St. Louis. Cardinal Ritter will host Kennett in that Class 3 state quarterfinal, and that will be Saturday afternoon, 1 o'clock start between the Kennett Indians and the Cardinal Ritter Lions. And a tough opponent for the Kennett Indians, as Cardinal Ritter will come into the game in the top 5. I think they're ranked top 5 in the state in Class 3, and not only that, undefeated on the year are the Cardinal Ritter Lions. So we'll be wishing the best of luck to the Kennett Indians next Saturday afternoon up there in downtown St. Louis, and we will look to broadcast that game from Cardinal Ritter downtown St. Louis Saturday afternoon. We're going to make that effort. We're not going to guarantee that we're going to do it, but we're certainly going to make the effort. We've been there twice already, going back to when Cardinal Ritter played Malden a couple times in 2 years straight. So we've been there before. It'll be our 3rd time going there. We're going to try to set that up once again, and if we're successful in doing so, which I'm pretty confident we can pull that off, we're going to try to bring that game to you next Saturday at 1 o'clock between Cardinal Ritter and Kennett in that afternoon contest. So look out for that this week, whether we bring that game from St. Louis, but certainly going to make the effort up in downtown St. Louis next Saturday. And take a look at the other matchup. Springfield Catholics taking on Mount Vernon, Trinity Catholic taking on Southern Boone, and Odessa taking on Maryville. Those are the other Class 3 matchups taking place next week. And no one local in Class 4, but West Plains out there undefeated and winning their district championship last night in Class 4 District 1. They advance on, so that's the only closest team there in Class 4 in the mix in the Class 4 state tournament. Now in Class 5, Jackson will take on Vianney. That's a rematch of last year's district championship game, but Vianney moves up to Class 5 District 2. So they'll match up in the quarterfinal round this year, where Vianney defeated Jackson. I believe it was like 71-50. Very high scoring affair there last year between those two. We might see the same this year, as Jackson will take on Vianney Saturday at 1 o'clock. And that will be, I'm not sure if they have a site for that as of this moment. So I would expect it would be up at Vianney once again this year. So, yeah, I would expect it to be at Vianney. And the other matchups, Lebanon taking on Carthage, Fort Zumwalt North taking on Battle, Fort Osage taking on Staley. And those are your Class 5 state tournament matchups. So there you go. There's state tournaments that are getting underway next week, Friday and Saturday. So we'll look forward to how those quarterfinal rounds happen next week. And we got some local teams, Hayti, Crothersville, Kennett, and Jackson all in the mix in the state tournaments. Wish them the best of luck going forward next week. And we're going to take another break and talk about some college football and NFL football matchups taking place this weekend. And we'll take a break and be back with that coming up.
At Ag Explore, we're farmers too. So we know that farming's never been a 9-to-5 job. Just like the farmer, we work overtime to bring you whatever it takes. Solutions like InZone help you retain 47% more nitrogen, with an overall average increase of 12 bushels per acre. Imagine what InZone can do for you. Ag Explore.
And welcome back, and now take a look at some college football matchups taking place today as we are, I believe, in Week 10. College football, and big Big Ten matchup today. 10th ranked Ohio State at 18th ranked Michigan State. South Carolina at 15th ranked Florida in the SEC. Wisconsin at 20th ranked Penn State in the Big Ten. 16th ranked Mississippi State at top ranked Alabama, where Alabama is 22.5-point favorites. Unbelievable the point spread that they can put up going against ranked opponents. But Alabama, big favorites over Mississippi State once again today. 4th ranked Michigan at Rutgers. Oklahoma State at 6th ranked Oklahoma, in-state rivalry there. 11th ranked Kentucky at Tennessee. 24th ranked Auburn at 5th ranked Georgia, big SEC matchup there. Florida State at 3rd ranked Notre Dame. 7th ranked LSU at Arkansas. And 2nd ranked Clemson at 17th ranked Boston College. So some nice matchups there taking place today. Take a look at our local teams. And SEMO is tied for first place, and I think they will have the head-to-head match, tiebreaker with Jacksonville State. Them and Jacksonville State share one loss in the conference, and SEMO defeating Jacksonville State. If they have that head-to-head tiebreaker, SEMO will have that tiebreaker. If not, they'll have a share of that conference title in the OVC. And they take on Murray State, who is actually 3rd in the conference. They've got 2 losses in the conference, but only 4-5 on the year. SEMO should have a good chance of defeating Murray State today on the road over in Murray, Kentucky. So good luck to SEMO, potentially going for that OVC championship here pretty soon. So another fine season by SEMO this year in the OVC conference. Arkansas State's at Coastal Carolina in the Sun Belt Conference. And Arkansas State sitting at 3rd in their division of the Sun Belt Conference, so they could definitely need a win today to get up in those standings. But sit at 3rd out of the 5 in their division. I believe that's the West Division. I'm not sure, but either way, in their particular division in the Sun Belt Conference. And take a look at the NFL matchups this weekend. The Saints at the Bengals, Falcons at the Browns. Patriots at the Titans, Jaguars at the Colts, the Cardinals at the Chiefs, the Redskins at the Buccaneers, the Dolphins at the Packers, Seahawks at the Rams in an NFC West matchup, and Sunday Night Football, the Cowboys at the Eagles in the NFC East, and the Giants at the 49ers on Monday Night Football on ESPN in a NFC matchup. So those are the NFL matchups to look forward to this weekend. So interesting time now as we're starting to make that transition from fall to winter sports. All the fall sports are wrapped up except for football. We've got about 3 weeks remaining in the season for high school football. Then we'll be getting into high school basketball, which we're starting to get ready for here on YHC. Another full schedule for you this year, about 55 games, not including district state tournament games later in the year. So another great season lined up here for you on YHC. We're going to try to bring you a basketball preview probably in the next few weeks here on YHC if we can pull that off, and preview our schedule that we've got coming out. Publish our schedule for the year, including the Bloomfield Christmas Tournament. So a lot to look forward to once again here on YHC for high school basketball. But still got some high school football to be played, some big games ahead for our local teams, and we'll be looking forward to seeing how that plays out over the next few weeks. So that's all we got for you for today. Again, remember you can watch that replay of the Park Hills Central and Kennett game here on YHC today, Saturday at noon, and also at 6 p.m. this evening, and then Sunday at 4 p.m. here on Channel 21. Watch it anytime on demand on our website at yhctv.com and our YouTube channel. So catch that Park Hills Central Kennett game where Kennett was victorious last night. And that's all we got for you for today, and we appreciate you for tuning in to today's roundtable. We'll look forward to see you right back here with us next week. And until then, have a great week. Take care, everyone.